Hey, RosterWatch Nation, it's your friendly neighborhood Trashman back with another fantasy, Dynasty update for our top 250 Dynasty rankings. I'll go ahead and get started. First off with Quentin Johnson of the Chargers. You know, I rarely regret some of the stances that I have in fantasy, um, but making Quentin, I guess, arguably my favorite receiver going into last year's draft or highly um, ranked receivers going into last year's draft was probably um, the thing I regret most in fantasy football. I kind of died on that hill as Johnston died on the field, so to speak. Really underwhelming rookie season, a little over 400 yards. Displayed all the foibles and missteps that I'd overlooked going into the draft. That being said, he's rising this week. I buried him in our rankings, um, you know, to help me hide the mistake I'd made, I guess. But he doesn't need to be as low as he was. He was ranked 215. Their GM this week attested that Johnston would really improve this second season. Not really improve, but would really, take off as far as his football career goes. And while GMs say a lot of things, I do think Johnson has a clearer path to targets this season. And I think a lot of what happened last season with Johnston was predicated on his targets. He was what 50th of 60 eligible receivers with over I think 400 routes run in 2023 as far as targets on those routes. So he really wasn't targeted very much, and that isn't all of his quarterback's fault. But Johnston this season has less competition. No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen. So I bumped him up a bit. After that, we had Tank Dell of the Texans, who was arguably my biggest underdog receiver coming into last year's draft. And he did pay off. He did help win a lot of people's season. So, kind of a mitigating factor in the whole Quentin Johnston thing. And he's moving up too. I mean, just slightly. I don't think I can actually get Tank Dell any higher than I put him this week. He's up to 27 from 29. I think that's his ceiling right now. Considering that he's, competing with Stefan Diggs primarily for targets in Houston. And Diggs, even though he's, 30, is still a premier receiver in the league, and he's going to garner a lot of targets. But we do know that CJ Stroud loves Tank Dell as a target, comfortable with him as a target. And we know Tank Dell delivers. And he's already running routes after getting shot in April, after breaking his fibula last season. He's already back at it. And it's been a slow week this past week. So I just bumped him up a touch. Lastly, we have Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions, age 22. He's rising to my number one running back spot in Dynasty from 9 to 7. He arguably, if he had if the Lions had used him like they should have for the entire season, I think there wouldn't be any question as to whether Gibbs was the #1 dynasty running back coming into this season. I mean, you just look at what he did in that game against the 49ers in the playoffs last season. Just the ease with which he was able to matriculate the ball downfield in his hands. It seems pretty obvious to me that he's a special player, and he's only going to get more use this season. His GM, Brad Holmes, attested to that. I mean, with a weapon like that, you have to use him more. And so if they are, and Gibbs, who ended up as running back 10, used sparingly for a lot of the season last year, gets an increase in usage this season, I mean, how can I not move the guy up a little bit? And again, a slow week. So, but there you have it, Dynasty update for the week. This is the Trashman on behalf of Roster Watch. Join us, or at least give us a comment, give us a follow. And until next time, be ready.